Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Farrah and today is the start of another vlog. This is going to be short and sweet. I haven't picked up the camera to vlog in at least over a week, almost 2 weeks. Just been really busy and I haven't really felt very motivated to talk about books just with the holidays and everything going on, but I did want to just check in and give you guys a quick update to start the vlog. So right now I have a lot of stuff going on. I don't know what happened, but I ended up picking up way too many books at once and now just in a rush to try to finish some of my Christmassy holiday reads. So let's just do a quick run through of what I have going right now. So right now I have 2 audiobooks going at the same time. Not ideal, but it is what it is. I decided to read Babel by R.F. Kuang as part of a buddy read in MJ's Discord that I just kind of jumped on. I didn't plan to do that, but I wanted to read the book and they were doing a buddy read. So I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do this. So Babel is awesome. I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm almost done. I have a few chapters left, but overall it's been a really great reading experience and I really enjoyed the group read aspect of just being able to talk about each chapter with everybody else that's reading it. And it's just fun and it's given me some good insights and just, a means to chat about how I felt about each chapter and share some of my favorite quotes and things. So for Babel, if you don't know what this is about, it's a historical fiction with a little bit of magical elements intertwined within the story. It takes place in Oxford at the School of Translation or the Tower of Babel. And we're following this man named Robin, who we start out, he's a young boy and he is kind of taken from his homeland in Canton in China and taken by this mysterious professor who is one of the professors of translation at Babel. And he adopts Robin in order to kind of groom him into becoming an Oxford student so he can train and be a translator, specializing in Chinese. So within the story, we get into a lot of discussion and a lot of topics about translation in general and the art of translation and languages and how they originated. It's a deep dive into this study, and if you're somebody that isn't interested in that type of thing, I will say it's a very slow burn type of story, and it is very, felt very info dumpy. It feels very info dumpy in a sense. I do like languages and the whole concept of translation is really interesting to me, so I didn't find that to be an issue, but I can definitely see how a lot of people might thought that it was a bit boring, just the concept of the story itself. Now the magical element comes from the activation within the silver metal. So Babel specializes in producing these silver bars and they etch a different translation match pair onto each bar, which when spoken by a true person that recognizes the complete meaning of the translation, there's a power related to that word that's activated. So for example, if there's a bar that says the word for invisible in Chinese and English, if somebody that truly understands the language speaks that word, they can, while holding the bar, they can become invisible. So that was really fun about it. Overall, the writing is really nice. I'm enjoying the writing quite a bit. And the story is, you can feel it's coming to a climax and what's going to happen. So I'll have more thoughts on this once I finish it, because I do have a few criticisms on this, but I'm not going to get into it now. So the next book that I'm almost done with is called Endurance, Shackleton's Incredible Voyage, and this is amazing. This book has been such a wonderful read for me. It's been so interesting. And this follows the failed attempt at a transatlantic expedition set in 1914. And we're following this expeditionist named Shackleton and his group of 27 crew members that take a ship called the Endurance down to the Arctic Circle in an attempt to reach Antarctica and, trek across the continent. Unfortunately, during their way down, the ship gets trapped into ice and it can't move, eventually becoming crushed, and they have to find a way to survive. They have to figure out a way to get from these floating ice packs somehow to a pack of land and then somehow to reach civilization to be rescued. I mean, It's so good, you guys. This book is becoming one of my favorite books of the year. I'm absolutely loving the writing. I'm loving the narration. I'm listening to, I'll put the name of the audiobook narrator here. He's phenomenal. He does an excellent job. But this story, it's just so good. It's so gripping. It reads very narrative nonfiction, so it really feels like you're reading this adventure story. And what makes it so remarkable is that it really happened. So absolutely loving that. I'll have a few more thoughts. Hello again. So my phone ran out of storage as I was filming that last clip. I was waiting in the parking lot to pick up my daughter from basketball game, and I just wanted to end this little segment by mentioning, yes, so I really am loving Endurance. I only have a little bit left, and it's just been a fantastic read. I highly recommend this book if you're interested in that type of story, because it was it's really well told, and I'm just really enjoying it. So I am also going to be starting A Christmas Carol shortly. We're fastly approaching Christmas, so I am starting to panic because I haven't started any of my read what you own Christmas type of books that I have on my shelf that I really wanted to get to. So I'm going to be starting A Christmas Carol. I put An Immense World on hold until I can get through a couple more of these books. And I'm also going to be starting A Magical New York Christmas, which is sort of like a holiday rom-com, easy breezy, light and easy type of read. So those are going to be the books that I hope to dig into within the next couple of days, and hopefully I can wrap up Babel and Endurance as well. So I will check in with you guys soon once I get a little bit more reading done. Oh my goodness, you guys. I just finally finished An Immense World by Yong, and as you can see from my tabbing, it was so good. It was so good. The last paragraph just put such a big smile on my face, and I loved this book so much. It was just like so interesting and fascinating and so well written, and it just felt like a story in a sense. It was like just such good narrative nonfiction journalism, and Ed Yong really just had a great personable way of writing, and I loved this book. I really loved it. I can't believe I finally finished it. The rest of the book here is just acknowledgments and the bibliography and stuff, but guys, if you love nature and you love wildlife and you like learning about the environment, I really highly recommend this book. It was so good. So good. Get it and savor each chapter and enjoy it. And yeah, one of the best books of the year for sure. Okay, I'm back for a quick update. Christmas has come and gone, and it was a whirlwind just like it is every year, but now I'm in the calm part of Christmas. I feel like I can finally relax and have more time to read and enjoy some Christmas movies and all that stuff. But I just wanted to give you a quick update. So I did finish both Babel and Endurance. I finished them, I think, on the same day. I just made a commitment to just finish them finally. And they were both just really, really great, interesting reads, each of them so completely different from the other. For Babel, I thought it was a really unique story. I've never read anything like that before. It had such a Victorian feel to it, except it felt like modern Victorian based on the language that she used to write the novel. And it was just a really interesting story. And I have a few criticisms. But in case you haven't read this or you don't want to hear about criticisms until after you've read it, I'll leave a timestamp here just so you can fast forward, because sometimes I don't like to hear anything negative about a book that I want to read because I don't want it to kind of skew my reading. Or if I really love a book, sometimes I just don't want to hear the negative parts about it. But this is still going to be spoiler free, but I'm just going to mention a few things. So with Babel, the ending to me felt pretty predictable. I kind of felt like this is what was going to happen the whole time. And I have to say that there's something a little bit off about the writing. Even though the story itself had a really great idea and premise, there was just something to me that was a bit off about the storytelling aspect of it. And I have heard people comment on this before. Chi, if you're watching, I know you had mentioned the same thing, that you just didn't really like the book for this reason, and I can completely see what you're talking about. So I felt kind of like the pacing was a bit off in this. It was the beginning was really going along nicely, and then we get this long stretch of not filler stuff because it was interesting, but a lot of not a ton of plot, but not a really huge deep dive into the actual characterization of each of our main characters either. It was weird. It was kind of just like a lot of teaching about language and the art of translation. And of course, the main theme of the book is talking about colonialism and how the British Empire is exploiting these people from native countries and using them to work as translators for them to further colonize the lands that these people originally came from. So that in itself was a really interesting topic to get into and to see the points of views of our non-white, non-English characters. So Robin has a few friends that he kind of goes along on his Oxford journey with. And, we start out strong learning about them. But at certain points, I kept thinking, why aren't we hearing more about Rami? What's Rami's story? Or why aren't we hearing more about Victoire and her story? And I felt like the author could have done a bit more to deepen the characters that we had to work with. And by the end of the book, I didn't feel a ton of emotional connection to anybody because I want to say the author is a highly academic person, I feel like, and she writes academically, but beautifully, if that makes sense. So I don't know, there was just something off. I didn't emotionally hugely connect with the characters, but the plot wasn't moving along fast enough for me either. So it was an interesting dynamic. Overall, I really liked the story. I gave it a 4. But that 1 star I had to take off because I just felt like the characterization, it was like she was telling us stuff about the characters, or the characters were telling us stuff instead of showing us more of a deeper understanding of what the characters are really going through. And I think maybe if she had made Robin as a first person point of view character, that would have solved that more for me. But it was a great book. It just had that little kind of bit of part of it that didn't make it a huge hit for me like it has been for other people. So that was just my quick thoughts on that. Now for Endurance, oh my gosh, the ending. I loved this book. I really, really enjoyed it from start to finish. It was fast paced. You got to know the characters. The imagery was beautiful that the author was describing. The writing was fantastic. This Alfred Lansing guy, I've never heard of him, but he just wrote this story so amazingly well. He basically took all the journal entries and he did personal interviews with the crew members that survived this huge expedition, and he created this story out of it, and it was so beautifully told. And one thing that I was left with feeling from this book was, first of all, the amazing way that he described the beautiful landscape of the Arctic. and the seasonal changes and what that all looked like with this horrific disaster that these people were just, they went through these waves of feeling hope and then feeling like they were never going to get rescued. And just the endurance that and the perseverance that they had and how they survived and how they all leaned on each other. It was just such a great story. I can't really imagine anybody that wouldn't like this book, unless you're just not a nonfiction reader. But if you like nonfiction, if you like survival stories, it was great. And I'm so glad I ended up reading it. And so that was my one and only pick that I got to for Historathon, but it was a huge hit. I'm so happy with that book. I gave it 5 stars. So I also ended up starting one of my Christmassy books. This is called A Magical New York Christmas by Anita Hughes. And this is just light and fun and easy. We're following this woman named Sabrina, who's, struggling writer. She's a struggling journalist living in Queens, she grew up in the Bronx, but I think she lives in Queens. And she's offered this assignment by kind of a friend of the family who is a world famous, renowned art dealer. And he wants to write his memoir, and he's hired her to be a ghostwriter for him. So he puts her up in the Plaza Hotel for a week, the week right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. And, all food is paid for, all drinks are paid for. And, she's going to be living there for the week, writing his story for him. So every day she meets with him and they go over his life and she takes notes and stuff. So along the way, of course, she meets this British man named Ian, who he's a secretary for this other guy named Spencer, who's some kind of British royalty. I mean, it's a Hallmark movie, written all over it. So it's just, what I like about it is that the characters aren't too over the top. They feel normal. It's a third person point of view, and we're getting both Sabrina's point of view and Ian's point of view. They really like each other. They're going all over New York City. So many places they're talking about I recognize. So if you're a fan of New York City and you kind of know the area, and it's just fun because I can visualize everywhere that they're going. So it's just a light, fun, Christmassy read, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's like going quickly, so it's just very short chapters, easy to pick up and put down, and I'm really enjoying that. So I also hope to pick up and start Christmas Carol. I think that's going to be a pretty quick read for me, and then we will go from there. But Merry Christmas. I know it's come and gone. Happy Boxing Day. That's probably come and gone as well. And we're rushing towards the new year, so we'll see what else I can get read for this vlog. But yeah, I will check in with you guys soon. Happy New Year, everyone. It's January 1st, and I decided to film a quick clip to kind of wrap up the vlog. So I know I haven't talked about this much in this vlog, but I've talked about it in quite a few vlogs before, but I finally finished An Immense World by Yong. how animal senses reveal the hidden realms around us. And this was such an enjoyable and wonderful read for me. It's nonfiction, it's narrative nonfiction, written by science journalist Yong, and he goes through every single sense that we have and that animals have within the animal kingdom, and how different species that are really well tuned to that particular sense, how they perceive the world around them, and how it's so different from our experience. And they just see things going on within the world that we don't have the senses to perceive those. And it was so interesting. It was so well written. I really enjoyed it. This is probably one of my favorite books I've ever read about wildlife and animal behavior and animal biology. It was just written in a really great way, an easy way to understand. The chapters were so full of different examples and knowledge, and there's the fire reflection again. And it was just a phenomenal, enjoyable read. I took my time. It took me about 2 months to get through this book, and I just tabbed my little heart out. Everything that I learned that was interesting to me or new to me, I put a little tab in here. And this is definitely a book that I'll be looking back into from time to time. You know, it was great. Some of the chapters about echolocation, this was probably the best understanding of echolocation I've ever had through all my different courses I've taken in animal biology. It was just written in a way that I could finally kind of feel like what it might feel like to have that particular sense. Some of the other difficult senses to understand was like an electrical sense that certain fish have, and magnetism. And I felt like he just did such a great job of explaining these. And one of my favorite things about this book was that I felt like he really had a talent in describing an animal sense to make it feel like you could possibly understand what it might feel like to be that animal, if that makes sense. He gave such great examples on how we could perceive what these particular animals are perceiving. So it was so good. You guys, if any of you really enjoy animals and wildlife and biology, I really think you're going to enjoy this book. So I just want to let you know I finally finished it, and it was just such a wonderful, wonderful read. I really loved it. I also was able to read and finish A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is the quintessential classic Christmas story. It's very short. It's actually kind of like a novella. And I really enjoyed reading this as well. I mean, I've known the story growing up. I always have known of the story, but it was just fun to finally read it as it was originally written. And I just, part of me wishes that I could have read this without ever knowing this story, and to experience it as the people must have experienced it back in the 1800s when it was originally written. I mean, I think this was an instant hit when it first came out. And what I really enjoyed about this book was it had a very Christmassy seasonal feel to it. I liked the underlying theme of being kind to others and being generous. And, it's a really interesting story when you think about it. It's really creative, when he came up with it. And I really enjoyed the writing within this book. And this is my first ever Charles Dickens book, and I love the writing, and I'm excited to be getting into more of his works in the coming year. But I really loved it for how short this book was. It really just packed such a wonderful story, and you really get a sense of the character of Scrooge and how he finally realizes what he's been doing all these years, and just a very satisfying ending. Of course, the Muppet Christmas Carol is always probably going to be my favorite adaptation, followed by the Mickey or the Disney adaptation that I really loved as well. But now it makes me want to go back and watch some of the older movies that have to do with the Christmas Carol. So yeah, it was just such a great experience reading this at Christmas time and being able to read this story as it was originally told. So really enjoyed A Christmas Carol. So those are the other two books I finally finished. The books that I'm bringing with me into January are going to be A Magical New York Christmas by Anita Hughes. And this is just a general kind of contemporary romance set at the Plaza Hotel in New York City during the week after Christmas and before New Year's. So I think I mentioned this is just really cute. It's a really easy read. And now that I'm done with the other books, I can kind of make this my priority to finish within the next week or two. Really having fun with this one. And then on my Kindle, I am reading my Agatha Christie book, which I meant to read in December. I just didn't get to it, but this is called The Adventures of the Christmas Pudding. This is a very short story, short novella, one of her shorter books. And already I am just really enjoying the writing. I keep having to remind myself that Hercule Poirot is not British, he's Belgian. So I keep giving him this British accent in my head, but I have to kind of get to know him as his character. So just some of the things that he says, I mean, right off the bat, it's just funny. They're trying to get him to stay in this British manner and to enjoy an old-fashioned British English Christmas, and he's like, ugh, he's just not into it at all, and it's just making me laugh. So looking forward to this. There'll be a separate, really short vlog about this book as part of my Agatha Christie series, so I won't get too much more into that, but those are the two books I'm going to be finishing up. You know, hopefully I'll finish those soon, and then I can get started with my January TBR. The audiobook I just started, it came in from my library, is called the Midwife by Jennifer Worth. And I've already listened to about 2.5 hours of this so far, and this is so good. Oh my gosh, this was recommended by my booktube friend Albert at Time at Last Book Reviews, and he did a review of this on his channel, so I'll leave that link below. But I know this is a pretty popular series it's on Netflix, maybe? It's definitely on PBS. But yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not going to get into it for this vlog. I'll save it for the next one. But I'm really, really enjoying it. It's such a fun audiobook to listen to. Just from my own background in nursing, I'm just really enjoying it. So that's where we are. And today, like I said, is day 1 of 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everyone had a fun New Year's Eve. So it's kind of crazy that we've come to the end of 2023. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take care, everybody.